This is the Crimson Corner with Bill Riley.
Walks it into the end zone for a Utah touchdown.
Your source for the best insight on everything happening in and around Utah athletics. Now, here's the host of the Crimson Corner, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley.
Welcome in to another edition of the Crimson Corner podcast. I'm Bill Riley. Our show today, our pod today, if you will, being presented by our friends at Advanced Window Products, Utah's #1 window company. It also happens to be owned by the Mayor Emeritus of Sac Lake City, one Nate Orchard. If you need windows, window treatments, you're thinking about replacing some of the windows in your house, or you're building something new, give Advanced Window Products a call. Mention you heard it from me. They'll take great care of you. Best part of everything they do is it's all made in Utah. It's all locally made and manufactured and installed right here in the state of Utah. So Advanced Window Products, thank you to Nate and his crew for sponsoring the Crimson Quarter podcast. And thank you guys for listening in today. Can you believe it? We're in November. What do they like to say in football? The games to remember are the games in November. And that could be the case this year for the University of Utah. They've got a big one this weekend coming up at Baylor. We're going to preview that game here on the pod today. We'll talk about the path to the Metroplex, whether that's Dallas or possibly a playoff, whatever that might happen to be, because Utah is very much still in the postseason picture for the Big 12 championship. And yeah, it's true, they're in the picture for the playoff as well, based upon where the first rankings came out last week. It'll be interesting to see where they're placed in the rankings this week as well. Got a couple of special guests coming up on the pod today. John Morris, my friend, who's 30-plus years as the voice of the Baylor Bears, will be joining us on the program today to preview this weekend's trip to Waco for Utah. And then Kyle Kepler, who's the director of, or the head coach of Utah Cross Country, will be joining us as well. They're hosting the NCAA Cross Country meets, regional meets this week in Salt Lake City. So Kep will come by and join us. And a little bit of basketball. Alex Jensen and his era is off to a 3-0 start. Where do we stand after a week of Runnin Utes basketball? All that coming up here on the Crimson Corner today, brought to you by Advanced Window Products. Hope you enjoyed the bye weekend. We're able to take in some college football and check out things around the country. This is where we stand right now with things. Utah travels to Baylor this weekend. Then they're home with Kansas State. And then they finish up the season Thanksgiving Friday, the day after Thanksgiving Friday, in Lawrence, Kansas against the Jayhawks. All three very winnable games for Utah, but all games that have some trappings. We'll obviously talk about Baylor this weekend. Traveling to Waco to face Baylor. By the way, third meeting in 3 years for Utah and Baylor, but the first meeting is Big 12 rivals. The first meeting, Utah was still in the Pac-12. Last year when Utah was in the Big 12, it was a previously scheduled game because it had been on the schedule for years, so it didn't count as a Big 12 game last year. So this is really the first official conference meeting between the Bears and the Utes. Utah won the prior two. They won at Waco 2 years ago with Nate Johnson coming in at the end and playing hero. Remember, we didn't have Cam Rising. There were a lot of things going on. It was the Nate Johnson game late. They won in the heat and the sun of Waco in September. Last year, they won at home. And it was the beginning of the end of the Cam Rising era, because that was the game that Cam started, looked great, and then he got shoved into the Gatorade coolers, broke his hand, and that was the beginning of the end of the Rising era at Utah. But Utah won that game as well. It was kind of the beginning of the end, too, of the Utah season. The Utah season kind of one more win the next week at Oklahoma State, then things became a struggle. Well, they're in different places this year. Both teams coming off a bye week. Utah number 13 in the college football playoff rankings. They're 7-2 and 4-2 in the conference. Baylor, maybe not quite having the season people thought they were going to have. They're 5-4 overall. They're 3-3. They've lost 2 of their last 3 games. They were close. They beat UCF before their bye week 30-3. Vegas likes Utah in this one by more than a touchdown favorite, for whatever that means. They're a betting favorite in this game. Baylor, though, this is a good team. I'm going to say this. They kind of remind me of Cincinnati a little bit. I think they're, frankly, Cincinnati with a better schedule. Remember, Cincinnati came to Salt Lake City, ranked 17th in the country, and they had just the one loss. But when you looked at their schedule, they really hadn't played anybody outside of that first game against Nebraska. Well, it's different for Baylor. They're 5-4. They're 3-3 in conference play, but they've played good teams. They've played tough teams. They've had some difficult opportunities, and that's why they sit where they sit right now. What's at stake in this game coming up on Saturday? Well, there's a lot at stake. especially for Utah. If Utah wants to play in a meaningful postseason game, meaning, say, a Big 12 championship game or play in the college football playoff, they absolutely have to win. There is no other path for Utah to get to the postseason in the Big 12 or in the playoff if they don't win. 3-loss teams just simply with this year are not going to play in Dallas and certainly aren't going to play in the 12-team college football playoff. So Utah, they've got to win to keep their preseason hopes of challenging for a Big 12 championship alive. For Baylor, it's a little bit different, a little bit more complicated. They're not playing to go to the Big 12. They've already lost 3 conference games, but what they are playing for is playing to be a spoiler. If you can't win, the next best thing is ruining somebody else's season, and Baylor's got a chance to ruin somebody else's season. That namely is Utah. They're also playing a bit for their head coach. Whether you like to believe it or not, there's a lot of things out there that say their head coach, Dave Aranda's on a little bit of a hot seat down there. He's 36-34 in his 5 seasons at Baylor, but he's just 24-27 in conference play. So there's some conversation in college football corners that Dave Aranda might be on a little bit of a hot seat. So he wants to finish the season strong because they've still got a lot to play for. They've got 3 games left. They can get an 8-win season. Remember last year, they started off slow and then ended up finishing with an 8-win season in a bowl game. So we'll see what happens. Baylor's dangerous. Why are they dangerous? Well, because they've got some dudes, especially on offense. Sawyer Robertson's their quarterback. He leads the NCAA in passing yards. He's got 2,780 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Number 1 in the Big 12, number 1 in the country in passing yardage for Sawyer Robertson. And to be fair, Utah's never really seen the full-on Sawyer Robertson. He came in barely a couple of years ago when they were down in Waco. They didn't really know who their quarterback was then. They had some injuries. Robertson played just a little bit. He had just transferred in from Mississippi State. Reminds me a little bit of Brendan Sorsby, who was in here just a couple of weeks ago. 2 very good quarterbacks who can spin it. They have the number 1 passing offense in the Big 12 Conference. Well, Utah's also got the number 1 passing defense in the Big 12 Conference. That'll be a fun matchup. But it's not just Robertson. They've got an outstanding running back who was hurt a little bit early this year, but he's really good. He's a home run hitter, too. His name's Bryson Washington. He's got 600 yards, 6 touchdowns, and they've got 4 pass catchers over 400 yards. 4 guys that have over at least 400 yards receiving, led by their tight end, Michael Trigg. And he's not your traditional tight end. He's kind of more in that mode of a Brant Keithy or a Dalton Kincaid type tight end. A little bit like J.J. Buchanan here. Funny thing about Michael Trigg, he's played against Utah a few times. Last year when he was at Baylor, but also he began his collegiate career at USC. He went from USC to Ole Miss, then to Baylor. So Utah has seen him, but he's really good. He's an NFL guy. He'll play on Sundays. He's their leading receiver. He's got 6 touchdown grabs on the year. So they've got playmakers all over the place, and they've got a guy who can get the ball to those playmakers. That's what makes them dangerous. The other thing that reminds me about Cincinnati of them, again, Sorsby and all those weapons he had as well, but their defense. If you look at their defensive numbers, they don't really jump off the sheet at you. They don't. They're kind of middle to lower pack, but they've got playmakers on defense. They've got some dudes at every level, same way Cincinnati did too. They're 13th in overall defense, 13th against the run, which says, okay, yeah, that lines up great for Utah, who's number 1 in running the football. But when you've got playmakers and you're at home, that can play in your favor. So again, they've got some dudes on defense. They've got a lot of guys on offense. So this could be a dangerous game for Utah if they don't go in with the right mindset. I have no doubt they will. Kyle Whittingham teams coming off bye weeks are generally prepared and ready to go, and Utah still has everything to play for this year. Everything lies out in front of them, from a possible trip to Dallas for the Big 12 title game to maybe a longer shot at the college football playoff, even if they don't make it there. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week. Some of the scenarios have changed. But here's really the best path for Utah to get to Dallas to play for the Big 12 title game. It seems pretty obvious right now that Texas Tech is going to be there. They took care of BYU last weekend. BYU was really the last good team on their schedule. I don't see a way where Texas Tech is not playing in Dallas for the Big 12 title game. And they're probably even if they don't win the Big 12 title game, probably a lock to be a playoff team as well. So Texas Tech is in good position. Now, for Utah to get there, obviously we've said this, they've got to win out. You can't stumble against Baylor or K-State or Kansas. They also need BYU to lose again, either to Cincinnati or maybe to TCU this weekend. And then they need to have Cincinnati lose to either TCU or Arizona, if that makes sense. There are some other wild long shot possibilities, but that's the best path for Utah to get to Dallas. Win out, have BYU lose to either Cincinnati or TCU, and then have Cincinnati lose to either TCU or Arizona. They play Arizona this weekend, so that's a possibility. Arizona's actually playing better football again, so we'll see how that goes. Is there a path to the playoff without a Big 12 title game? Yeah, but again, it starts with winning out. You got to win every game there. Then you've got to hope for a little chaos. Hope for another BYU loss somewhere along the line because that will likely knock them out. Probably want to, if you're really a hardcore Utah fan and you're looking at this big picture, you want Notre Dame to lose again because right now Notre Dame has 2 losses. That guarantees them if they finish 10-2, they are guaranteed a spot because of the deal that was struck years ago. They're guaranteed a spot in this 12-team playoff. But if they get that 3rd loss, they're out. They're not going to be in there. Their best chance for a loss is probably this weekend, playing an improved and pretty good Pittsburgh team. After that, it's a pretty easy go. Root for a little bit more chaos in the ACC as well. Maybe it's a Louisville. Maybe it's a Miami. Maybe it's a Virginia. Maybe it's a Georgia Tech to lose another game. The ACC's picture is not looking good right now, but if you could get another loss for one of those upper-level teams in the ACC, probably good. And the other thing, just based on where the rankings were last weekend, Texas and Oklahoma sat, I believe, at like 10 and 11, somewhere in that range. They're just in front of where Utah's at. Texas has 2 losses. Oklahoma also has 2 losses. A loss for a Texas or a loss for an Oklahoma would probably drop them behind Utah and not give them really a chance to make that up. So, again, that's a lot more chaos. We're talking about things that need to happen and a lot of things. But the number one thing that needs to happen for Utah is they've got to win out. And for them to win out, it's got to begin this weekend against the Baylor Bears. A good Baylor team, not a great Baylor team. This was a Baylor team by a lot of people's minds that was picked maybe to win the league, certainly to be in the top 3 before the season began. It hasn't played out that way. And we'll kind of find out why it hasn't played out that way as well coming up. We're going to talk to John Morris. He's the play-by-play voice of the Baylor Bears. We'll talk to J-Mo coming up and get his thoughts on this weekend's matchup and what lies for Utah, waiting for Utah in Waco coming up on Saturday. Just a reminder for you, too, we'll begin our coverage Saturday at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester, and I will go on the air from Waco and Baylor at 3 o'clock with a 5 o'clock Mountain Time kickoff along the radio lines, and that game will also be seen on ESPN2. So quick time out here on Crimson Corner. We'll come back, preview Baylor, and talk Big 12 football, maybe a little basketball too, with my friend John Morris, the voice of the Baylor Bears.
Here's another insider interview on the Crimson Corner podcast.
All right, really excited to have our next guest on the pod with us today with the big game coming up on Saturday in Waco. Nobody knows Baylor football better than this guy. He's seen all of it, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. He's the longtime play-by-play voice. John Morris, kind enough to join us here. J-Mo, how are you?
Bill, great to be on the Crimson Corner with you. Look forward to you coming to Waco this weekend.
First and foremost, how's the weather going to be? Because the last time we were in Waco, I felt like it was the face of the sun. It was humid. It was hot. It was early September. It was the only game I've ever broadcast where I got a sunburn. So I'm bringing sunscreen this weekend. But the game's later in the day, so I don't have to worry about that. But what's the weather going to be like?
Yeah, leave the sunscreen at home. You'll be fine. Once it gets to November, it is November. It cools off a little bit here in Waco. Shocking, right? But it should be really nice. I think temperatures in the 70s. There's a slight chance of rain later in the game, but it should be really, really nice. And hopefully that first trip here didn't scar you for life when it was so hot.
No, I'll be happy for the warm weather because we're just about ready to turn here in Utah. We've got 50s and 60s, but we'll be in the 30s and 40s here really, really soon. This is a big game for the Utes. Despite the losses to BYU and Texas Tech, they're still in the mix for everything right now, John, coming off a bye week. Baylor, they're also coming off a bye week. You guys are having a good season, maybe not what they thought to this point, but give us a little Baylor Bear update coming off the bye.
Yeah, I would say this, Bill, and tell me if you agree. It seems like I say this every week. This is a big game, and then the next week I say, this is a big game, but they're all like that, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
every week, especially in the league, everybody can say that.
No, I completely agree with you. This league, it's not that much different than what Utah went through back in the Pac-12 days. I used to say nobody cannibalizes itself quite like the
Yep.
Pac-12 does. Well, the Big 12's doing the exact same thing. It's cannibalization every week. And you're right. This is a big game for Baylor. You guys are trying to push toward a good end of the season and a nice bowl game. Probably not a Big 12 championship game, but still a good finish the way you did a year ago, because you guys got a lot better after you left Salt Lake City last year. And for Utah, there have been a couple of speed bumps, but everything's still in place. So both these teams, and especially coming off a bye, should be in a good position, really fired up to play.
Right. Yeah, very much so. And both teams coming off a bye. I think that's significant. Sometimes if one team has a bye, the other have played a tough game. Sometimes, if you had a little extra rest, that's a factor. But even in that category, but you ask about Baylor's season, it's been very up and down. We've had some really good performances. We've had some disappointing performances and a couple that are right in the middle there. So that explains a 5-4 record and 3-3 in the conference, which is right where we are. But I'll tell you this, coming off the UCF game, which was 2 weeks ago, our most recent game, that was Baylor's most complete game of the season. And they really did put everything together in that game, meaning it was very much complementary football, which Coach Aranda's been talking about a lot and we've been looking for. The offense did their part, scored 30 points. The defense did their part, holding UCF to only 3 and holding UCF to 1 for 14 on 3rd and 4th down opportunities. So that was really big. And then our special teams have been pretty good, for the most part all season. Our punter is really good. So that is Baylor's best effort. Almost like coming off that game, I wish we'd played the next week instead of having an open date. But we need the open date also to get guys ready. And we'll see if we can continue that, play to that level against a really, really good Utah team.
John, I joked with somebody the other day. I said last year's game in Salt Lake City was the end of an era and the beginning of an era. It was the end of the Cam Rising era. When he went into those Gatorade coolers, it effectively ended his career at Utah with the hand injury. But in some ways, it was the beginning of the Sawyer Robertson era at Baylor, because DeQuan Finn started that game and he was outmatched. He just was by the Utah defense, and Sawyer came in later. And I think it was right after that game. Didn't he kind of become the starter after that game and finish the year strong? And he's had a great year this year.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And it was, I can remember. So you mentioned that with Cam Rising, I can still see that play in my mind, when he ran off to the near sideline and ran into the Gatorade cooler and unfortunately was done from there. And I can picture DeQuan Finn like a deer in the headlights against that Utah defense. He was just overmatched. And so they went to Sawyer Robertson. And the rest, as they say, is history. Sawyer has been very good. The end of last year, the 6 straight wins to end the regular season last year and through his senior season to this point so far. So it was a really good move for Baylor, and Sawyer's just terrific. He's a great guy. He's playing very well. He's playing with a lot of confidence, and he's a guy that fits Baylor really, really well.
Got a bunch of weapons too, John. Obviously, Bryson Washington in the backfield, but 4 guys over 400 yards, or 4 guys over 400 yards receiving, led by your. We've seen Michael Trigg at the beginning of his career at USC, and now he's at the end of his career at Baylor. Utah's seen him all over the place.
How about that? We're glad we got him. I tell you what, Michael Trigg has made some unbelievable catches this year. A couple of them one-handed grabs, one of them right on the sideline where he just reached up with his left hand and pulled the ball in. So he is good for 1 or 2 spectacular plays every game. But it's not just him. There's Josh Cameron. And there's several other guys, like you said, 4 with 400 plus receiving yards. So that's one thing Sawyer has really matured in, the fact that he'll find the open receiver. He doesn't lock in on one guy. He'll find the guy that's the best target and make it work.
So with all that firepower, And on defense, you've got some dudes at every level. Why the struggles? When they've struggled, what's gone on? Because they've got the 4 losses, 3 in Big 12 play.
Yeah, very fair question. Mostly on the defensive end, just giving up some really huge plays, chunk plays is how our coaches refer to it. Teams have really gashed us, both running and throwing the ball, and to the point that the offense has done its part pretty well, but just couldn't match up a lot of times to what the defense was giving up. Now, it's not completely the defense's fault, and they're coming off their best game of the year. But that's a big part of it is just the defense has given up a lot of yards, a lot of big plays, and a lot of points so far this year.
Yeah, the matchup that's going to be fun. Sometimes the matchups we think decide the game don't decide the game. You never know. But the one I think is going to be fun is you guys are the number 1 pass offense in the league. Utah's the number 1 pass defense in the league. And, Utah's secondary was a question for me heading in this year. But they've held up pretty well. Texas Tech, who loves to throw it all over the place, really where Utah got beaten that game was when the backup quarterback came in and he ran the ball a bunch, a lot of quarterback keepers and stuff. And then I was, let's see what Brendan Sorsby was the best quarterback in the league rating-wise coming in with all those weapons. Well, Utah did a good job. This is another big test. Bye week. Sawyer Robertson, I think, leads the NCAA in passing yardage and all those weapons. I'm really curious to see how those defensive backs match up with your pass game.
Yeah, it's a great matchup on paper, isn't it? We'll see how it plays out on the field on Saturday night. But we played some really good pass defenses already this year. Sawyer has held his own for the most part, but maybe not a challenge like this. I mean, you talk about the pass defense of Utah, but I think your total defense, from the guys up front, everybody is just really, really good. I think the best we've seen this year, maybe the best we'll see all season. So it's going to be a real challenge for Baylor against Utah.
Matchup inside the matchup you're watching. You can't use mine because I just threw mine out there. So you throw me yours.
That's a good one. How about if we go to our running backs? And Bryson Washington has been really good, and a couple of freshmen have really come on when Bryson was banged up a little bit. So remember Caden Knighton, he's a true freshman, and Michael Turner's a true freshman. And those guys, in spurts have been really good. But I would say, and I think I say this every week, if you can run the ball and you can stop the run, you got a chance to win every week. And if we can run the ball, if Baylor can run the ball against that defense of Utah, I think we'll have a chance in this game. But it's tough. It's tough to do, and these guys are very capable. But again, Bryson Washington has been banged up. I don't think anybody benefited more from the open date this past week than Bryson Washington. So that's what I would say. The matchup inside the matchup, if Baylor can run the ball, do it consistently, then we've got a chance in this game.
All right, what do you make of the league overall? You've seen, between you and I think we've probably seen just about everybody in the league, if not in person, certainly on television. For me, Tech's the class of the league this year. They spent well, they invested well. It's paying dividends. What do you make of the league top to bottom right now?
I think really good, and it is top to bottom. It's not top heavy. It's a bunch of good teams at the top, bunch of good teams in the middle, and then there's a few others down there that are struggling. Like Colorado's won one conference game, and Oklahoma State hadn't won a conference game yet. But a lot of really good teams, and this is kind of where we started our conversation. Where every week, it's tough. Every week, it's a big game, and it's pretty unpredictable. I agree with you that Texas Tech is the class of the league to this point. They proved that against what was an undefeated BYU team. So Texas Tech is there. I just hope the league gets enough respect by the committee. And our athletic director, Mac Rhodes, by the way, is the chairman of the CFP committee. But I hope we can get multiple teams in the playoff this year because I think we deserve it.
Who's Baylor's biggest rival in the Big 12?
It's a good question. Used to be a toss-up between Texas or Texas A&M, depending on who you asked. But now they've gone by the wayside, and we don't play them anymore in football. So I would say it's TCU. I think it's pretty clear-cut now that it's TCU, and it's a great rivalry. I mean, it goes back to many, many years in the Southwest Conference, and now with TCU in the Big 12. We've had some memorable games with them over a long period of time.
Hey, before I let you go, basketball season, you and I are in our crossover season,
Yeah.
football, basketball time. We saw Bears a couple of times last year. Really good team. One guy's a star in the NBA now, VJ Edgecombe. One other guy's playing south of here about 40 miles. We'll see him again. So what's Scott Drew got this year? What are you guys anticipating for basketball?
Well, you have to get a score sheet, Bill, when you come to Waco or we come to Salt Lake City because it's a completely new team. We're one of three mid-major or major schools in the country that returns 0 players from last year, and that would be 0. We have one guy here, Cameron Carr, that was here and redshirted last year after he transferred from Tennessee, but he didn't play a minute. So everybody else is new to the team, and it's really interesting. I think Coach Drew looks at that as a real challenge. And if there's anybody that can bring a team together, bring guys together, it's Scott Drew. And whereas we take this, Baylor's off to a 2-0 start, beat Washington on Sunday night, which was a good win for Baylor here at home. And then we'll play on Friday night, the night before the Baylor-Utah football game. So off to a good start, plenty of challenges yet to come, but it's interesting, isn't it, when everybody's roster has undergone these massive changes through the offseason.
Well, thank God you and I didn't go in the portal. At least the people listening to the games have a familiar voice bringing them these new names, right?
It's nice of you to say. I don't know if anybody'd care here if I went in the portal or not, but for you, nobody wants to lose Bill Riley from Utah.
Stop that. If I get a run like yours, I'll be very, very happy. All right. I think I'm going to hit Buc-ee's. Everybody loves a good Buc-ee's trip. I'll at least grab Buc-ee's. Any dinner suggestions for Friday night?
Absolutely. Where y'all staying? You staying in Waco or you staying in Temple?
I don't have those details.
Okay.
It's on a need-to-know basis, and apparently I don't need to know.
I know how that is. Just tell me what time to be on the bus, and I'll be on the bus. Buc-ee's is good. Buc-ee's would be memorable for you. There's some good Tex-Mex here. There's some really good barbecue here. So I would say, depending on what you want, and there's a good Cajun seafood place that's right on the river that's really good also, the Brazos Landing. So those are the ones that I would recommend to you, but we got no shortage of good places here.
Am I okay to drop your name?
Yeah, for what it's worth, yes.
John Morris, thank you, sir. I look forward to seeing you and the crew coming up on Saturday.
Bill, I appreciate you, man. Look forward to you guys being here. I think it's going to be a fun Saturday at McLean Stadium.
The best insight on all things Utah athletics. It's the Crimson Corner Podcast.
Bonus interview today here on the Crimson Corner. The Utes and the University of Utah are hosting the NCAA Cross Country Regional Championships in Salt Lake City this weekend out at the Regional Athletic Park in the Rose Park area. And this is some of the best teams in the country, not just the region. The region that Utah's in with BYU and others is arguably as good, if not competitive, as anybody in the country. So to give us a little insight on what's going to be going on this Friday is the head coach of Utah Cross Country, Kyle Kepler. Kep, how are you?
Hey, we're great, man. We're excited to host this meet and, in a little different location than we've been in the past. We've been over at Rose Park, but these guys over here at the RAC have just been exceptional and welcomed us with open arms. And we tried them out for the Pac-12 meet, the former Pac-12. We hosted the conference meet here back in, I think, 21, and it went really well. And so we thought we'd try to get a regional meet out here, and here we are.
Your team's in this. You guys are hosting, but you're in as well. What do people need to know about this meet in particular and the teams that are here this weekend?
I think you said it best. I mean, it is absolutely year to year one of the best regions in the country. Men and women. We got the number one ranked team from just south of us on the women's side, and I think their men's team's maybe ranked 4th or 5th. We've got New Mexico on the women's side. Colorado's back a little bit now. Northern Arizona's their usual selves, and then there's always some sneaky teams, the Air Forces and the Utah Valleys and Utah States. I mean, they're always really good, and they'll run hard and try to put themselves in the mix, particularly on the women's side.
You guys are in this mix as well. You've had a really good season. You're nationally ranked in the top 25 right now. So what does it take at this particular meet with this many quality teams to advance onto the NCAA championships?
Yeah, I think simply put, you want to see us in the top 5. I'll save you the long-winded version because it's the at-large thing is very complex, but the top two automatically go from each of the 9 regions. So there's 18, and then there's 14 at-large bids, and they're essentially doled out based on who you beat, not within your region during the year. And we have a large number of points. So if you see us finish third, fourth, or fifth, and the teams that would be likely to beat us third or fourth if we got fifth also have a bunch of points as well. So that would bode well. And, we'll be shooting for a minimum of a top 5 finish.
On your team this year, who's run well? Who do you need to have a good weekend this weekend for you guys to advance?
I mean, we've got the dynamic duo at the top, Anna Peters and Aaron Vringer. I mean, Anna was a freshman, or was an All-American as a freshman, the number 1 American finisher as a freshman 2 years ago. Last year, she just missed by 4 places being All-American again in cross country. And of course, Aaron's an All-American on the indoor track where she anchored our distance medley last year to a 5th place finish. So those guys, and they've been super consistent all year. They've done a good job. Even, their great races are great. But if they're maybe off a little bit in a given day, they're usually not too far apart. But this is really probably going to come down to 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7 for us. Those guys bunching up, staying together, kind of following in behind. They don't have to be in the front pack, but they've got to be in front of the big mass that'll be behind the front pack. So that'll probably be what determines our day.
You've got a really cool story, too. You've got a first-time cross-countryer who's having a really good fall for you, who kind of came over from the track side, right? Miley Wilcox?
Yeah, Millie is an Olympus kid, and we recruited her as a 4.8 kid, and she just kind of kept getting better with the aerobic training, and we tried her in a mile, and then we, tried her in a little more than that, and then we just, we kind of ran out of sprint training type of things to do. So we thought we'd try her out in cross country. She had a nice summer, and here she is, running in this meet for us, and hopefully going to help us advance.
So is there a home course advantage for you guys being kind of in your backyard, only a few miles from campus, or not so much?
I think it's always nice to sleep in your own bed, which we'll do. We'll get a nice team meal the night before, and it's really just trying to keep things the same like you are on the road, and not do anything too crazy. We talked about that this week. We have had one workout out here, so it isn't like we get to come out here and work out all the time, because typically there's kids soccer and youth leagues and those kinds of things. But that's done for the year. And so that's part of the reason I think we got to come out here as well, is, it fits their time of year and fits our needs and so forth. But it's still great. I mean, they're going to have a ton of support. Their cross country teammates that aren't running, the track teammates, parents, I'm sure a ton of folks in the athletic department, because, that's just what they do. Our department's so great at supporting our teams. And I think there is somewhat of an advantage to it. Maybe the only disadvantage a little bit is that, when you're the cross country coach, you're typically one of the only people that knows how to set the course up. So you have to come out and spend a few hours doing that during the week. But, beyond that, we're chugging along just like we normally do.
For those that might be interested Friday to come out and watch this, that are listening in the Utah, Salt Lake City area, where do they need to go? How's the course set up? What time do they need to be there? Give us some details. Yeah,
you bet. You might need a little rain gear. We'll see. The weather forecast has gone back and forth. It's beautiful right now, in the days leading up and so forth, but, or it has been, but 10:30 race time, I would suggest trying to be out, getting off that exit ramp, 215, 2100 north is where you get off at. And, come on over, and you might want to be about a half an hour early, 10 o'clock, just because parking, there's only going to be one entrance in, and trying to make sure the teams get into their area where they need to be, and not everybody using the same entrance, and keeping the kids safe, because their warm up area and their team tent area are where one of the entrance roads is. And so we have to keep them safe. So I would suggest showing up at 10. The women run at 10:30. It's a very simple 2K loop. In the shape of a U, of course. What else would you expect from the coach at Utah? But it's 3 laps for the women. And then if you want to watch the men's race, that course extends a little bit. It probably looks more like a J, but it goes up around the pond out here at the rack. But again, it's a loop course, 4 loops of 2,500 meters. They're running 10,000 meters. So, and that'll start an hour later at 11:30. So, but yeah, I would suggest if you can be a little bit early, just because of lots of parking and so forth, but just the one road in, so to speak. I think it could just take a few extra minutes if everybody tries to show up in that 10:15, 10:20 time frame.
Hey, Kep, thanks for doing this. Good luck this weekend, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Happy to do it. Go Utes.
Kyle Kepler with us here on the Crimson Corner.
You're listening to the Crimson Corner podcast with the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley.
So we'll wrap it up on Crimson Corner today with a little bit of hoops news in the Runnin Utes. I know there's been so much buzz and excitement about this Utah basketball team from that day in late March when Alex Jensen was hired, and there's been a lot of questions about this team through the summer and early fall. What are they going to look like? Well, now we've got 3 games under our belt now. They've played 3, all of them at the John M. Huntsman Center. They knocked off San Jose State a week ago. Then they beat Weber State in a tight, hotly contested overtime game. In-state games are always crazy. And then just the other night, they took care of business at home, taking care of Holy Cross out of the Patriot League. So they're 3-0. Alex Jensen, by the way, still undefeated in the Huntsman Center. Do you realize he never lost a game as a player in the John M. Huntsman Center in his 4 years playing? That's pretty amazing. And now he's 3-0 as a coach. Unfortunately, all good things will come to an end because I don't think Alex is going to go undefeated for his career at the Huntsman Center. But for now, that record remains perfect. And on Monday night, they got a win over a solid Holy Cross team, and it was their best effort of the year. Weber State, it was a not great first half, and they were down by 7 at halftime, and then they battled their way back in the second half and found a way to win in overtime. Not ideal. You should hope to beat Weber State if you're Utah by more, but it's an in-state rivalry game, and it's still a new team figuring out how to play and how to win together. But Monday night, they gave their best effort of the year. Holy Cross never really threatened in that game. Utah came out with excellent energy. They rebounded the ball well, which they did not do well against Weber State. And that's something that they're going to have to do. We'll touch on that coming up in a minute. They're going to have to give that kind of an effort because this Utah team doesn't have a McDonald's All-American on the team. They don't have all-league type players. They've got a conglomeration of new guys who are good, but they have to, if they're going to maximize their potential, it's kind of the team mantra is team together. They have to play well together. You hear football coaches say it all the time. Complementary football, complementary football. The Utah basketball team, the Runnin Utes, have to play complementary basketball, and they did that on Monday night in their win against Holy Cross. What do we know about this team after 3 games? Well, we know Terrence Brown is their best scorer. The kid is fantastic. He played he was an under-recruited kid out of Minneapolis who just had a heart as big as the Twin Cities. He had to go to Fairleigh Dickinson to begin his career, a smaller school back east. But he thrived there. He was so very good. They identified him. They brought him in, and TB he's their best scorer. I don't know if he's their best all-around player, but he's a bucket. He's a walking bucket is what he is. He had 36 against Weber State. By the way, did you know only 5 times since 96-97 has a player gone for 36 points or more for Utah? 3 times it was Keith Van Horn. 1 time it was Brandon Carlson. And this young man in his second game as a Ute, Terrence Brown, had 36. And the funny thing is he's not a great outside shooter. He has to go to the basket and earn it. He's kind of, and it's going to sound silly to say this because I hate comparisons sometimes, but he's kind of a poor man's Allen Iverson. Not just because he wears the headband and he has the cornrows, but AI was a solid shooter. But what did Allen Iverson do? Allen Iverson was like $160 soaking wet, but he was fearless. Well, to be fair, Terrence Brown's about $170 soaking wet, but he's fearless. He attacks the rim. He's got that knack and the ability to get to the basket, draw the foul, and he's really, really good at it. And his backcourt mate, Don McHenry, does a really good job as well. If Utah is going to be successful this year in the Big 12 and really in non-conference as well, they need Terrence Brown and Don McHenry to be successful on the floor together. So that's the one thing we know. Those 2 guys are really good high-level scorers who have played some college basketball. Don's in his 5th year. Terrence is in his 3rd year. You need those veteran guys. Second thing, Utah's going to have to rebound better. They were better against Holy Cross, but the rebounding should improve beginning Saturday when Sam Houston State comes in. They'll get James Okonkwo back. James had been serving a 3-game suspension's the wrong word to say. There's a lot of rules in NCAA transfers, and James has been at multiple schools, and he got a waiver to play early, I think, at Akron. So the NCAA said, yeah, you can play at Utah, but you're going to have to sit out the first 3 games. So James had to sit out the first 3 games. He'll be back. He is a high-level rebounder. Averaged almost 8 rebounds a game playing for Akron last year. He played at West Virginia. He played at North Carolina. He knows what it takes. His presence on the floor on a somewhat undersized team is going to help their rebounding. Plus, Keanu Dawes can rebound at a very high level. And a couple of the young kids, too, are doing a nice job. Josh Hayes and Kendall Sanders, 2 newcomers, are doing a nice job as well. But they're going to have to continue to rebound as a group and rebound at a better level to beat some of these better teams. And the third thing is they can't afford not to bring the energy from the start. On Monday night against Holy Cross, they brought the energy from the start and were terrific. They really didn't do that against Weber State, and as a result, they were behind. They didn't bring the effort on either end, but especially rebounding and defense. Weber put 49 up in the first half against Utah. Whatever Alex's message was to them at halftime, it stuck because they came out looking like a different team. But playing from behind will not be a winning formula later in conference play or later in non-conference play or in the Big 12 season. When you're playing Iowa State or you're playing Arizona or you're playing Kansas or you're playing BYU, you have to match their energy from the jump, especially on the road. So that was better against Holy Cross, and I think that message was delivered and received. Now, Saturday night, they play Sam Houston State. I know we've talked a lot about football on this podcast, and unfortunately, I won't be able to call that game unless they figure out a way between now and then to clone me and get me in Waco or some sort of teleportation to where I can call the basketball game and then be teleported to Waco. So Tyson Ewing, my friend, who's the voice of Utah women's basketball, will call that game with Sean Mooney coming up on Saturday. But Sam Houston State, don't sleep on Sam Houston State. They're in Conference USA. And talking to my partner, Sean Mooney, who watches way too much tape. I love Sean. He loves college basketball. He told me the other night, he's like, these guys are really good. They went toe-to-toe with Texas Tech. Texas Tech. Sweet 16, Elite 8 caliber Texas Tech. They went toe-to-toe with them on defense and on the boards. And then I talked to Alex Jensen after the game on Monday night. He's like, oh, yeah, Sam Houston State's going to be a load. So that will be on Saturday. Come out and watch that game if you're not going to Waco. Come out, watch the game, keep me in your ears, listen to the football game, but support that basketball team because these kids are playing hard. And there's some really nice talent out there this year that's really beginning to come together for Utah basketball. That'll be Saturday. And then next Tuesday, Purdue-Fort Wayne, who's also a lower level team, but not a bad team. They'll be coming in. Then it starts to get real for the Runnin Utes. November 26th and 27th, they'll be at an MTE tournament in Palm Springs. Grand Canyon, who's very good. They're coached by Bryce Drew. You remember Bryce Drew? Valpo, last second shot in the NCAA. Brother Scott coaches at Baylor. Father Homer was anyway. Bryce Drew coaches Grand Canyon. And then you've got Iowa and Ole Miss as well. They'll be in that tournament. So, again, they're playing good teams now, but they're going to really step up in competition beginning the week of Thanksgiving down in Palm Springs. But these next 2 games should be good tests for this team as they continue to come together and emerge. You can get your tickets, by the way, for Utah basketball. They've got some great packages. You can buy just non-conference tickets, single-game tickets. You can buy mini packs. You can buy conference tickets. They're all available with all kinds of different ticket plans, and it's a fun team. So come out to the Huntsman Center and watch. Go to utahtickets.com, and they'll take good care of you there. So that's what we've got on the Runnin Utes side of things. Hopefully when we get back together next week, we're talking about a team that's now at 5-0 on the season and getting ready for that big trip Thanksgiving week to Palm Springs. Big thank yous to John Morris and Kyle Kepler. If you get a chance on Friday, get out to the Regional Sports Complex here in Salt Lake City out in the Rose Park area and support the Utah cross-country team as they compete in the NCAA regionals. I will join you next from Waco, Texas, on Saturday, late afternoon, evening, as the Utes try to keep things rolling in Big 12 play against the Baylor Bears. Nick Bowlerjack produced it. I'm Bill Riley. Enjoy your week. Talk to you Saturday from Waco. Go Utes.
You've been listening to the Crimson Corner podcast with Bill Riley. Bill is back next week with the latest on Utes. Download previous Crimson Corner episodes on all major podcast platforms.